First corner on your left, can't miss it. Oh, and spoilers. Welcome to the channel, I'm Hayes, I talk movies all day, so subscribe right now if you want to be entertained. And today, I want to talk about Wong Turn, the 2003 horror movie starring the only vampire slayer to not get killed. So how this works is, I'm going to go through the movie, point out all the reasons I can find as to why it's trash, and then at the end, drop a few final thoughts. So the movie starts off with two people rock climbing. Neither of them are wearing helmets or pads or any kind of protective gear, they're not even wearing gloves. Man, no wonder the actors are going on strike. Anyway, the girl slips and the guy's all acting like it's no big deal and doesn't help her up. So yeah, obviously these two are gonna die. I mean, two young people in the middle of the woods, no one around for 50 miles. And this guy's getting his leg over with no protection. You're just asking for trouble at this point. Also, they're climbing up the rock. So why is the rope hanging down from the top? Their car was on ground level, which means they started at the bottom and now they're here. But who set up the ropes to hang from the top? Because those ropes look a little bit too clean to have just been left there by the previous victims. So did they climb up without the ropes, set up the ropes to hang down, then climb down, and then climb back up again using the ropes? Because if so, these guys should have been dead before the movie started. Also,
don't be a dick, Richie. I need a pull.
Anyway, the opening credits are actually pretty cool. The music and the imagery really set the tone for the movie. But here's the thing, there's a bunch of documents and articles that show that the killers are deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos. So I'm assuming they're gonna catch the bad guys within the next 10 minutes since they already know who they are. I mean, they probably should have put them in Arkham Asylum instead of the forest, but whatever. The cops can just take them into custody, and then after that, the rest of the movie can just be Eliza Dushku ranting about how much better Buffy the Vampire Slayer would have been had they cast her in the lead role. And it would have been.
What you ought to do is get back in your car, fix your hair a couple hundred more times.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know sometimes people can say things in an arsehole kind of way, but that was actually just good advice. So Chris is driving to Riley but gets stuck in a traffic jam due to a chemical spill. But my question is, why are you driving? Riley is around 50 to 60 miles from Greenbrier, so surely there's better ways to travel than Oh. Okay, wait a minute. How is Greenbrier and Raleigh in the same state but there's no direct or even indirect public transport? Either Google is on drugs or the United States of America is a third world country. Still though, if you are going to drive to 50 to 60 miles from Greenbrier to Raleigh, you should definitely be using a much more fuel efficient car. Also, I can understand Chris's frustration, but that's no excuse for driving the wrong way down a hard shoulder while using a mobile phone and not wearing a seatbelt. Nah, Chris died in this scene. So Chris pulls into a local gas station. But my question is, do places like this really exist? I mean, gas stations in the middle of butt bang nowhere that seemingly never have any customers, don't even have proper direction signs? Did somebody just paint that? Anyway, Chris asks the station attendant if he knows of any other routes going south. However, Raleigh is really more west or maybe west-southwest of Greenbrier, unless he's actually trying to get to Raleigh in North Carolina. And in that case, you really shouldn't be driving, bro. And a Mustang? No wonder Greta don't like you people. Also, they don't specify how long it's been, but since the highway was only going to be jammed up for a few hours, at this point it's probably a better option to just drive back instead of attempting to traverse an unpaved dirt trail called Bear Mountain Road. Gee, what can possibly go wrong? Also, this guy seems to know that there are killers out in the woods, and I'm mad that he didn't try to warn Chris, because so far Chris comes across as one of those fancy city slicker dickheads. That being said, why are you there? Surely this shop ain't making nearly enough money to justify being that close to a bunch of deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos. So what happened in his life to make him think, this is my best option, because maybe they should be telling that story instead. So Chris is driving on an unpaved dirt road in an unfamiliar area and doesn't pay attention. I mean, dude, if you're so fascinated by the dead animal, you know you can just stop the car, get out and take a look. It's not that hard.
I was just coming around the bend.
No, you weren't. Anyway, now we're finally introduced to the only reason anybody even watched this movie, and Jessie has already proven herself to be far more useful than this city slicker dickhead. So while looking for a phone, Scott tells Chris that they were out there on a camping trip. Now I ain't no Bear Grylls, outdoors expert and nothing, but I'm pretty sure none of them are appropriately dressed for a forest camping trip. So is that a thing? Do people just go out into the woods without the necessary attire? Or was this movie made by somebody who played a lot of 90s video games? Chris tells Jesse that he has to be in Raleigh by 7. They don't say what time it is now, but it was 9 when Chris was in the jammed up highway, and even if he is trying to get to Raleigh in North Carolina, there really was no need for him to get off the road. It's about a 5-hour drive to Raleigh. Add 2 hours for the jammed up highway, add another 2 hours in case of any more traffic, add another hour for breaks and refreshments, and you got an arrival time of 7. So, why was Chris acting like he was in some mad rush when he already did the right thing by allowing plenty of time for the journey? Are you dumb? Oh, and when he told whoever he was on the phone with that he was running 30 minutes late, evidently
that was a fucking lie.
Hey, did you find anything to eat? They took all my power bars.
No.
You know what? I'd have done the same thing. When Jesse asked Chris why he didn't just fly to Raleigh, he said that he put all his money into his car. Now the Mustang is a cool car, no doubt, but definitely not the type of car you buy with all the money you have left. This guy's impulsive, impatient, which leads to bad decision making. Chris does not survive this movie. So here's the thing about Evan's death. They sliced his ear off and he didn't scream, which means he was either dead or unconscious before they sliced his ear off. But if you've already killed somebody or knocked them out, why cut off their ear unless you want to keep it as a trophy, which they clearly didn't. They weren't even using it to lure Francine, she just happened to see it. They just killed the dude, cut off his ear, and then left his ear on the ground. For why? To be fair, they are deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos, so I guess not a lot of their actions are gonna make sense. But if they've been leaving body parts in the woods and still no law enforcement or nobody has come to arrest them already, or at least seal off the whole forest and make it clear why nobody should be going in there, I swear this movie did not need to happen. So the group go gallivanting through the woods and eventually find a creepy looking house. Scott actually suggests they should keep walking. Good advice. He also pointed out that West Virginia and trespassing are not a good combination. Now I ain't never been to West Virginia, but based on the movie so far, good advice. And he also reminds them of the movie Deliverance. Good advice. So naturally, they all ignore him. Also, look at this house. I'm pretty sure Carly is better off just pulling her pants down and pissing right there. I mean, I ain't saying they gotta show her bush or nothing, but it would make sense. Okay, look, I get it. It's a horror movie. You can't have them behave too sensibly or you wouldn't have much of a movie. Fine. But come on, everything about this house is screaming, get out now. Listen to Scott, get out now. You don't need a phone that badly. They probably don't even have a phone. And Carly, you can relieve yourself and run at the same time. No one's gonna judge you. So finally they realize they need to get out the house, but the deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos are pulling up in the front yard. But here's the thing, the deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos drive. So do they have jobs to pay for the cars, fuel, and maintenance? I'm gonna guess no, which means they're probably stealing money from the people they kill and then using that money at a gas station. And that kinda explains why the station owner doesn't just move his business to a more profitable area. They've probably got a good thing going. Or maybe they're siphoning fuel from their victims' cars. Or maybe both. In any case, how many people must have been to those woods and never returned? At least enough of them to have all that stuff in their house. And again, it's known that they are there, and yet nobody, not a single anybody, has tried to do anything about them. Anyway, when the three bears come home, the group hide. Chris and Jesse hide under the bed, but that bed is high enough off the ground for Jesse to have her whole head on top. Furthermore, Chris was evidently real close to the edge, and you're telling me they couldn't be spotted at all? Not even when one of them picks up a shotgun shell? Nah, Chris and Jesse died in this scene. I like this scene. It's a classic tension builder, even down to Carly knocking over the pot. Here's the thing though, when Carly knocked over the pot, Jesse gave the shh sign. But why? It wasn't a purposeful pot knocking over situation. I'm pretty sure Carly already understands the need for silence. So what happened to...
There's nothing like stating the obvious, huh?
Alright, so listen to this.
Jesus, that really just happened? Do you think Kevin's okay?
Whose voice is that? Because it kind of sounds like it's supposed to be Jesse, but it doesn't sound like Jesse. It doesn't even look like Jesse is speaking, and those words are more like something Carly would say, but that's definitely not Carly's voice. I'm pretty sure it's not one of the guys either. I'm guessing it was added in post, but why? I mean, if it's supposed to be Jesse, up until this point, Jesse's pretty much been the no-nonsense, tell it how it is, natural leader type. but then they add a voiceover to turn her into a damsel in distress? Bad enough they have her holding hands with this city slicking dickhead. Like, am I supposed to believe the one who figured out that the traps were set deliberately all of a sudden can't run by herself and needs a guy who doesn't even look where he's going to guide her? Matter of fact, speaking of character changes, Chris has gotten all brave and smart all of a sudden, grabbing the spring on the door to stop it from making a noise, volunteering to be the distraction so that others can get to the car. I mean, look, I get we all acts different when we're trying to impress a girl, but I'm not buying it. This the same guy that spent all his money on a Mustang to go drive some 280 miles, was too impatient to wait for the chemical spill to be cleared even though he had plenty of time, plus the emergency services were already arriving, so it probably wasn't going to be that much longer anyway. The same guy that rather than wait, decided to go driving through an unpaved dirt road and didn't even pay attention to where he was going, and we're now supposed to believe that this guy is all of a sudden the brave smart one? Nah, Scott is the real brave and smart one. He stayed calm when Chris crashed into the car, checked on his well-being, kept the moods light, was genuinely scared when Carly pretended to disappear because he's a good, caring, emotionally stable person. And had they listened to him, this movie would have been over like 20 minutes ago. And speaking of pretending, when Scott pretended to fall over the edge, did you notice how everyone reached out to stop him? Except Chris? Nah, Chris is a prick. Scott is a real one. The only saving grace is that Scott died a hero's death, but wouldn't have died at all if Chris wasn't such an arse clown. This is on you, buddy. Anyway, the next scene is Chris, Jesse and Carly driving away, getting stuck in the mud and then walking until they find the watchtower. What's interesting though is after everything they've just been through, they really don't look like they've been through what they've been through. Chris, I guess, is the dirtiest, but not hiding in a filthy cabin then getting shot and chased through the woods level dirty. Jesse has a little blood and some dirt on her top. Carly looks like she just stepped out of the changing room, and both girls look like they've just been seen by hair and makeup. By now they should all be covered in the most amount of cuts and mud and sweat and torn up clothes. I mean, I ain't saying it gotta show their titties or nothing, but it would make sense. Anyway, after the deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psycho set fire to the watchtower, it was probably the best idea to jump down to the tree branches. But from that height, and not one of them cracked a rib or anything? Really? And why is this girl jumping like this is WWE? Her name's Jessie, not Jeff Hardy. It's actually sad that Carly got killed. I think this movie could have benefited from having the most unlikely character end up being the sole survivor. I mean, Carly didn't even get a hero's death. I mean, to be fair, she wasn't a hero, pretty much just cries the whole time, but still, Carly deserved better. But now we're left with the environmentally inconsiderate, impatient, no attention paying, city slicking dickhead, and the no nonsense, tell it how it is, natural leader type, turned not too far off pointless character. Anyway, Jessie tells Chris the story about how her boyfriend dumped her and how her friends all skived off work so they can take her camping, and now they're all dead. Chris then tells her that it's not her fault. Now, if he meant that it's not her fault her friends are dead, that would be true, because that would be Chris's fault. Entirely. If, however, he meant it's not her fault she got dumped, you don't know that. You don't know what happened to make him dump her by voicemail. She could have been a horrible person. She could have tried to kill the people that were trying to help her. She could have pretended to be someone else so she can sleep with that person's boyfriend. Just saying, you don't know what happened. But in any case, what kind of friends take you camping when you get dumped? Imagine going through a breakup and all your friends were like, come hang out with us loved up couples and be the only single person in the group. If they were good friends, they would have bought her 2 tubs of Ben & Jerry's and a packet of AA batteries. This movie did not need to happen.
How are we gonna get you down?
I'll get down here.
Oh, of course. Now they have bad guy aim. Is this guy really wondering where Chris went? Literally the most obvious place would be under the car, and this guy is all confused about where he could be. And are we supposed to believe that when dude finally looks under the car, Chris somehow managed to get away without being noticed? He managed to move quickly without making a noise, with a gunshot wound to the leg. Really? How did a fully healthy Scott get 3 arrows in the back as a moving target, but these guys can't get a limping, city slicking dickhead with attention issues? Nah, they did Scott dirty. I don't care. They did Scott dirty. Also, Arrow Man killed a cop, possibly accidentally, but killed a cop nonetheless and doesn't seem to care. So one can ascertain that it is not the cops that are protecting them, and the fact that they've been killing all these people and literally been living in the crime scene all this time and nobody has come for them? They gotta be a government thing like top secret, CIA, KGB, LGBT, because that's the only thing that's making sense right now. No, this man did not just Cape Fear that car. No, I am not buying that. No, you are lying right now. So Jessie got captured by the deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos, but they don't kill her because plot convenience? Everyone else was on site, but now they want to tie people up and hold them captive. Also, Arrowman drove that police car through dirt roads and forests with Chris underneath. The amounts of stones and sticks and bumps and everything else, no way Chris is still holding on with an injured leg. Matter of fact, where is Chris? Anyway, Chris and Jessie get into it with the deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos, and oh wow, they escaped their turmoil because after killing all those people successfully, it was the city slicker with attention issues that gets the better of them. The movie ends with Chris and Jessie stealing a truck, then stealing a map and driving off somewhere. There's also a mid-credits scene to let us know that at least one of the deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos survived, but we never do find out if Chris ever made it to Riley, or indeed which Riley he was trying to get to. I suppose the moral of the story is to be patient, pay attention, and don't be the type of person that boys dump by voicemail. Okay, so before I get into my final thoughts, if you liked this movie, check out these movies. They're all horror movies set in remote locations, and none of them involve a bunch of dumbasses doing dumbass things. Well, apart from Blair Witch, but still. So let's talk about Wrong Turn. I rented this movie on DVD probably around 2004-ish, purely because of this front cover. And I ain't even gonna tell you what I was thinking at the time, but suffice to say, nothing that was in my head was in this film. But whatever, it wasn't the first time I watched a movie for the wrong reasons. Wasn't the last time either. But the thing about films like this is that they take what is ostensibly a really good concept, but then execute it very poorly. Especially with Chris and Jessie. Both characters go through a change, which is fine, character growth is important. But the thing is, when? Chris starts off as an impatient medical student that doesn't look where he's going, and when they finally realize what's going on, is somehow the de facto leader of the group. But there's no character defining moments where we see his growth, it just happens. And we're supposed to believe that he's the natural hero type? Why? He hasn't earned it. And Jessie starts off level-headed, kinda investigative, a little sarcastic, and then spends the next however long barely contributing anything. It's kinda like from the moments they reached the house, Chris's role was originally supposed to be Jessie, and Jessie's role was originally supposed to be Chris. But some high-level movie execs decided to swap him around last minute. Now I'm not saying that's exactly what happened, I don't know that. That's just what it seems like to me. Either that or there's 3 or 4 missing scenes where they're changing character is actually explained. But as it is, there's no reason given to make Chris a believable hero. And speaking of no reason, there's no reason given as to how these deformed, inbred, genetically mutated psychos have been getting away with it for so long. From all the items they had in the house to all the vehicles in the open field, that's a lot of missing people. How can that many people go missing in one place and nobody thought, that's odd? The villains are set up on such an unbelievable premise and the film does nothing to make it make sense. And because they have unbelievable heroes and unbelievable villains, all it's left with is, how good are the kills? And the answer to that is, not very. Most of the kills were off camera with only 3 on camera deaths. Scott, which was just a few arrows in the back. Carly could have been a good kill, but the camera was so close and it was so dark you can barely see anything. And then there was a cop who caught the arrow in the eye. Actually, yeah, that one was pretty cool. Oh, and why is this film called Wrong Turn? Nobody actually made a wrong turn. Dude just wasn't looking where he was going. So yeah, this movie didn't really do it for me, but let me talk about some of the things I did like. There was the Oh, of course, Scott. Scott was the standout character for me. He was kind, considerate, smart. I ain't even mad he killed him off because he at least got a decent enough death scene. It just sucks that his girlfriend didn't get to avenge him and the only survivors were a couple of bozos. But speaking of standout characters, why is Eliza Dushku on the poster? I mean, I know why Eliza Dushku was on the poster, but why is Eliza Dushku on the poster? Her whole contribution barely qualifies as co-star. Meanwhile, the actual star of the film, where is he? Look, I get it. Eliza Dushku was the more well-known name, so it makes sense to use her to promote the movie. But this is just outright lying. And that wouldn't have been so bad if the movie wasn't so lackadaisically handled. So let's recap. Poor character development, poor villain story, some decent tension building, one good kill, Scott and Carly deserved better, and the only wrong turn is the direction this film took. I think that just about covers it. But that's what I think of Wrong Turn. What do you think of Wrong Turn? Let me know down below, and while you're there, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop a suggestion if you don't mind.